Yes, we have some breaking news out of Ottawa, where the government is finally responding to the UN top court's decision today on South Africa's genocide case against Israel. And CTV Jeremy Sharon is standing by with the latest. Jeremy, we've been discussing this all morning. So what is Canada finally saying?
Yeah, actually, this is what we've been waiting for. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly just moments ago issuing a statement on the ICJ's ruling. And I'm going to read you part of the statement here. It says that Canada supports the ICJ's critical role in the peaceful settlement of disputes and its work in upholding the international rules-based orders. Our support for the ICJ does not mean that we accept the premise of the case brought by South Africa. It is for the ICJ to make a final decision on the case, which it has not done yet. We continue to follow the case very closely. The statement goes on to add that Canada will continue to support Israel's right to exist and defend itself in accordance with international law. Nothing can justify Hamas's brutal attacks on October 7th. Now, the statement goes on and mentions a few other things, as well as highlighting concerns about the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This is the official response that we've been waiting for throughout the day today. Up until now, the Canadian government and the Minister of Foreign Affairs had not yet made their position clear. Really, actually, this is a statement that is very neutral, very planned and carefully executed. When you look at the way that the statement is laid out by the Canadian government, they really are saying that they are respectful of the International Court of Justice's mandate and their right to rule here, and they respect the decision, but they're not necessarily supporting their decision, coming out publicly and supporting the measures that they are taking right now. Instead, saying that they will wait to see what the official decision and the fuller decision, because as we know, this ruling today was just a preliminary ruling. And so basically Canada is saying we're going to wait till the official ruling to determine whether or not we support the International Court's ruling, while we do respect what they are doing. So it really is kind of a nuanced statement here from the Canadian government, while also showing support for Israel and their right to defend itself.
Also, while reading through the statement, I'm also trying to understand, Jeremy, if you can throw some more light. The fact that the court today, the ICJ, came out with, of course, those 6 provisional measures on what should happen at the moment. Well, of course, this is an interim ruling by the ICJ. The statement by the Foreign Affairs Minister actually says nothing about those 6 measures. It says nothing about, having a humanitarian pause if need be. It says nothing about how Israel needs to respond within a month. So in terms of today's development, there is no clarity of what the Canadian government is saying on those 6 provincial measures.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there is no specific wording in this statement by the Canadian government that addresses any of those measures, those 6 measures. Among them, and the most significant, are that Israel must take measures to prevent acts of genocide in Gaza. They must prevent and punish the incitement of genocide, and they must allow aid in. And to your point, the Canadian government makes no reference to any of those measures. And as well, as you've highlighted, they are being recalled in a month to have to prove to the International Court what they are doing to adhere to these orders by the court. So the Canadian government steered very clear of any specific details in today's court ruling. Rather, kind of like I mentioned off the top, expressing their support of the court itself, and really not referencing much about today's decision and today's orders, rather deferring to the fact that they'll wait for an official decision because this is only a preliminary ruling. And as we know, actually, the official decision on this and the official decision on whether or not this could be labeled genocide, we've heard from the court, could take years, likely at least 2 years. So it seems like we are a ways away from an official decision, but also a ways away from hearing specifically where the government stands on what kind of steps Israel should be taking to actually make sure that they're avoiding committing genocide and protecting Palestinians.
A larger part of this statement also, Jeremy, is pretty similar to what we've heard from the Prime Minister before, when he did say, when the government was put under the spotlight, under a lot of pressure on what that stand really is, when South Africa approached the ICJ, a major part of this response today is similar to that the Prime Minister also saying that Canada believes in the work of the ICJ. And while I say that, I must also add, in the statement we're also learning, they're saying humanitarian access must urgently be increased and sustained in Gaza, something, of course, that Canada has been talking about in the past, but specifically about the measures that we've been discussing, nothing on those lines.
Yeah, no, exactly, Akshay. And to your point, right at the bottom of the statement here, and we'll read part of it out. Parties to any conflict must protect civilians and respect international law. They are obligated to allow and facilitate the rapid and unimpeded access of essential humanitarian relief for civilians. Humanitarian access must urgently be increased and sustained in Gaza. So that is a reference to humanitarian aid, but that is also in line with what we have heard from the Canadian government, that humanitarian aid must be at the top of the priority list. And we've heard that from many officials, even the U.S. officials who have been a close ally of Israel and have supported Israel throughout this conflict, have made it clear that humanitarian aid and protecting civilian Palestinians in Gaza have to be top priorities. So it's nothing really new in this statement, but yes, at least to your point, an acknowledgement that humanitarian aid access in Gaza has to be at the top of the priority list and has to continue to increase. There is not a sufficient amount. Humanitarian organizations say there's not a sufficient amount of aid being moved into the region. So certainly highlighting that is important, yes.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about reactions that have been coming in, for example, Jeremy, we heard from the U.S. as well, saying that, of course, the ICJ's ruling today is consistent. That's the word they used, consistent to what the U.S. has been saying. But having said that, let's talk about some other reactions too. I mean, this is the official stand of Canada. But meantime, all of today, we have heard from some other politicians in the country as well on what they are saying, where they stand on the issue. Just bring us up to speed with that.
Yeah, MPs have been weighing on this as well, and you know, kind of expectedly so, Liberal caucus has been split on this from what we've heard so far. As MPs made their way onto the Hill this morning for this multi-day caucus meeting, they were questioned by reporters, many of them, the Prime Minister included. He chose not to answer any questions this morning, just said good morning to reporters in passing. Despite being asked specific questions about the ICJ ruling. Other MPs chose to have a say and weigh in on this decision. That includes Selma Zahir, who says Canada believes in international law, and whatever the ICJ decides, we should accept that. On the other side of it, you have MPs that are still standing by their beliefs that Israel is not committing genocide. We have Anthony Housefather, who says it's important to recognize what the court's decision was today. Today, the court did not take a position on whether or not Israel is committing genocide, he said. My position has been that Israel is not committing genocide. And to the point we've been making, that official decision on whether or not genocide is being committed is far from conclusion. That decision by the court is, as we've learned, probably years away still.
Indeed. All right, we leave it at that for now. Jeremy Sharon there bringing us the reaction, the official reaction from the Canadian government on ICJ's ruling today. Jeremy, thank you.
Thanks, Akshay.